Welcome to the Euro Step Brit podcast.
Game's going to be decided here. Harold spots up, doesn't go, putback is good! Roberto Canada with a second chance opportunity. Aris lead. Per Gunter for three, got it! Per Gunter drei Punkte. Courage inside, for Gordon for the dunk! Ball game!
Welcome. It's episode 6 of the Euro Step Brit podcast. We'll call this episode Tailor-Made for Coaching. Mike Taylor is a general manager and head coach of the Winnipeg Sea Bears. His coaching career has taken him back and forth across the pond between North America and Europe for almost 3 decades. Not just club teams, but national teams too. I thought it'd be great to take a look back over a long career that included a stop in the UK, and of course, I had to ask about my favourite German team, seeing as he spent many years there. There's no way you'd want to cram 30 years of coaching stories into 30 minutes. So that's good news for those of you who asked for the occasional longer episode. Your wish has been granted. Right, without further ado, let's get to it.
So Mike, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on. I just want to look back at your career because I hope you don't mind me saying this. I think next year it's going to be 30 years since you started coaching.
It's amazing, right? Time flies when you're having fun.
And you started off, you were doing in the US college circuit, and then you get an offer to come over and coach in Germany. Is it Chemnitz? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Correct. Chemnitz, yes.
How did that come about?
Well, as I was coaching in college, you deal with athletes and players that have dreams of pursuing professional careers. And for most players, that does not include the NBA. So I got involved with some players at the schools I coached who wanted to continue to play professionally overseas, and nobody knew how to do it. There was no direction. There was no information. So I started to try to find ways to help players get some exposure. I took them to some overseas tryout camps in the USA and made some contacts. Yeah, at the same time, I was networking, trying to work my way up the college ranks as well. So I worked maybe for 3 summers. I worked 11 camps all over the United States, like every big name school you can imagine. And I got to be friendly with a guy named Aaron Christian. And Aaron Christian, he worked for a coach who had placed an American coach from San Diego in Chemnitz the year before. He was missing his girlfriend, missing home, and wanted to come home. So they offered the job to Aaron, but Aaron also had an offer to go to Portland, University of Portland, and join their coaching staff. And he said, "Hey, Mike, I know you've been coaching some of these travel teams overseas and helping players try to get over there. Would you be interested in this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And the original thought to go to Chemnitz was 1 year, make some international contacts for recruiting, get some head coaching experience at a young age, 28, 29, and come back to the USA. My dream my whole life to be like my dad, a college coach. I just, wanted to be a college coach like my dad and never really thought too much about overseas. But through this process of trying to help these players, this opportunity came. I really didn't know what I was getting into with Chemnitz. So I just jumped at it. And man, I started to really enjoy the whole process. It was 3rd division Germany, so we're not talking about high level here. But I made some really good friends for life. We had a great year. It was tough. The first part of the year, we were 7-4 at Christmas, and there was some pressure from the team because we, everybody had expectations to move up. But, we made some adjustments, won 11 straight games, had a great run down the stretch and, moved the team up. So we won the championship that year. That was the first Aufstieg, moved into the 2nd division. And, the plan was they're like, "Hey, Mike, we want you to come back." But I was really, my sights were set on coaching in the USBL in the summer. I told them, let's talk in July. But in that time, they brought in another local coach. And that's kind of how I ended up in London, because when Chemnitz kind of filled that role, I was looking. One of the coaches that I met at these tryout camps, Robbie Pierce, helped me with Ed and Annie T. Simons, and they ended up hiring me. I think it was, they were ready to shut the Leopards down. They decided they're going to bring them back. So I got a late start with team building, but I was just thankful for the opportunity, and really the year in London was a great learning experience for me.
I'd say around about that time they were looking for buyers to take on the franchise, weren't they? Did that
Yeah,
ever have an impact on how the team was constructed or how, your season went
I
about?
wouldn't. I would say that the late start impacted it more than anything. Like I realized that I was going to go to London probably mid to late August. I was over there late August, and we were just trying to piece together a team for the season. Um, throughout the season, we had a couple interested buyers. One significant we spent a lot of time with, but ultimately at the end, he decided not to do it for family reasons. And they kind of closed up shop. But the year that we were there, we went through some roster change. We kind of struggled to get our footing through most of the season. But as I said, it was a great learning experience for me. I enjoyed the league. Obviously, you had guys like Nick Nurse and Chris Finch coaching in it. You had some really good players at the time. And then I think, towards the end, it was like, okay, Mike, we'd love you to stay and try to help bring this team back next year. But my heart was set on coaching. I wanted to coach. And that's where the opportunity came for me to come back to mainland Europe and get back into Germany. The offer to coach Ratio Farm Ulm. And obviously, that's kind of where I made a name for myself, working 8 years there, moving the team up into the Bundesliga, 5 years in the Bundesliga, making the playoffs. And we see where Ulm has elevated themselves as an organization now. So building the foundation for that organization. But I look back on my time in London, and I learned a lot on and off the floor. When you are working with a team that has some disadvantages, there's certain things that you can make up for and certain things you just can't make up for. And I was really trying to do a lot with a little. But at the end of the day, I'm so thankful for those times because I think you have to understand, it makes you value the support from different situations, different organizations. It makes you appreciate the structure that you can work in. And I think teams win and lose for different reasons. And a lot of times the support from the organization is critical, right? But for me, the lifestyle of the UK was wonderful. I still have many friends for life, like Tony and Lynn Shorey came to visit when I was in Ulm several times. There's still friends that I'm in contact with from the UK. Unfortunately, I haven't been back since the Sky TV days, but yeah, a lot of good memories from the Leopards, even though it was some tough times for us on the court.
Well, it's going to be absolutely useless for an audio podcast, but I'm actually wearing an Orm shirt today because part of the reason I follow Orm is down to you. And then obviously Torsten Liebenhoff came after you because both you guys coached in the BBL and then obviously coached in Germany. What was that Orm experience like? Because obviously they were in the second tier, then they'd been reformed just a few years before. If I'm correct, back at the time when you took over, they had pretty much one of the smallest arenas and budgets in the league. Would that be fair?
Yeah, Sportzentrum Coburg. I absolutely love it. So that era of Ulm basketball was a lot of fun. I was extremely happy with that role in that situation. Thomas Stoll really supported me and gave me the opportunity to learn and grow and develop. And, when I first got the job there, I brought in Ed Williams, who had played for Thames Valley Tigers. He was our one import player. We had we had an Irish guard, Michael Bree, fantastic playmaking point guard, a couple German guys that had played in the USA. And we had, 8 or 9 guys that just loved to play together. And that first team was so much fun for the fans to watch. We went 26-4. We lost 2 overtime games to Tübingen, who was the Ulm rival. They were classic games. And the difference for us to move up and win the league that year was 3 overtimes and 5 points. So we had a wonderful run. We went on a U.S. college tour. We did a lot of great things that first year. But after coaching with the Leopards, then coming into a situation where there was great structure and there was maybe not high level organization or high level. It was a young organization growing and developing, but the direction was there. We had everything we needed to win, and we were winning. The next year we had expectations, and we had some chemistry issues within the team. We had a really, really talented team. We went 10 deep, but the roles were difficult for some of the players. So we weren't connected really as a group. Instead of going 26-4, we went 24-6. So it was still a really successful year. But the expectations and goal for the team and organization was to win and move up. So after those 2 years of experience, we got it right the third year. We went 29-1. We had a great team that fit together. The Jeff Gibbs, who's still playing in Japan, came in and was a dominant rebounder. He, of course, was a great player for us in the Bundesliga as well. But, that 2005, 2006 team was, maybe the best team I've coached. It was so much fun. And in fact, the one loss we had all year was at Chemnitz, a little personal rivalry game. Chemnitz was still a good team at the time, and we just fell short out there. So, after those 3 years, the chance to move up and then take it to the next level, they evolved the Sports Centrum Coburg a little bit, but it was still old school. 3-side tribune, behind the bench was just a big wall. They expanded it a little bit, changed it a little bit, but it was still the old style Bundesliga. So I absolutely loved it. Our goal, after making the playoffs, or let's say we moved up, we went 16-18 the first 2 years, and we kept that core together that moved us up. And then in the third year, 2008, 2009, we had our best year in the Bundesliga. We made the playoffs. I think we were 21-9, finished fifth, played Bonn. We had Drew Joyce, Romeo Travis, obviously Jeff Gibbs, Sean Finn. I'm trying to remember Keith Triplett, Dan Fitzgerald. We had a really good team. Loved working with those guys. And at that point, for me, it was like, hey, there was some possibilities to move to different spots. I was really happy in Ulm and extended my contract there. And the mindset was, hey, there's a new arena coming. So the goal was to try to keep Ulm in the league for the next 2 years. Thomas and the management said, hey, we can't really pay for all these players, Jeff Gibbs, Drew Joyce, all the players that had done so well for us. So the mindset was, let's reinvent ourselves as a destination for young players. We had Per Gunther that year as a young point guard. Not a lot of people thought he was a Bundesliga player at the time, but we were all over him as a young point guard. Brought him in. He was a backup to Drew. Started the season and led us as a 20-year-old to a big win in Bamberg as a young point guard. That was a great moment for him and showed his potential. But we also, the next year in 2009, 2010, brought Robin Benzing in. So, as we reinvented ourselves as a team, a destination for young players, you had Per and Robin at the heart of it. And, my experience from these 2 years was, developing players, committing to develop players is a great thing, right? You want to help players grow and develop, but it's really, really hard to try to develop young players and win at the same time. If you're going to help develop players, you got to allow them to play through mistakes. You got to allow them to gain the experience and grow and develop. And this is basically what we were doing. We were giving Robin and Per huge minutes. We allowed them to play with big responsibility, and they were growing and they were learning. And I think their careers played out in a great way for them because of these years, because of these times. I remember great moments for Per having some big games and a game-winning shot for Robin, against Tübingen that year. So this was a shift in perspective from our team. Instead of, hey, build up a core of guys, we're trying to win, we're trying to get to the playoffs. All right, now let's dial it back, stay in the league. And we were never threatened with, the descent or Abstieg, as they call it in Germany. So we were kind of in that no man's land, not good enough for the playoffs, but also not threatened to go down. So for the team at that time, that was mission accomplished. Then my last year in Ulm, 2010, 2011, we tried to build it up a little bit more. There were some issues. You could start to sense some different feelings from Thomas about the team building. He asked me certain questions about, hey, what players would you like to have? And one of the guys that I absolutely loved was Lee Humphrey, a great three-point shooter from University of Florida. For me, he had led the league in three-point shooting, and Thomas was kind of beyond it. He was like, hey, I want to get a different player in here. And, this was kind of the beginning of it. You could kind of see like, okay, two people kind of who had worked really well together for many years, moving in different directions. But they tried to put more expectations on our team to make the playoffs at the time. And I think we maximized our team. We were competitive. We had some injuries. During that year, Robin was really trying to get drafted. He was really aiming for the NBA draft, and we were all in. We were all trying to help him. Svetislav Pesic was not coaching at the time. He had just, I think, left with Valencia. Well, Marco, his son, now at Bayern Munich, was an agent, and Marco was representing Per. And it started with Robin, but then he also picked up Per. But, they brought Svetislav in. We hosted him for a week. Spent a lot of time with him. He was around, brought him onto the court and let him run some drills with the team. But he was really there to focus on helping Robin. And I can tell you, Robin Benzing worked so hard. He was tireless in his efforts to try to improve and grow and develop and get better. There was one day, one of the writers from one of the German basketball magazines came in to do a feature on him. And at the end of practice, guys were just shooting around, and, Robin like collapses from exhaustion in front of his basket. So I go over, I'm like, Robin, are you okay? What's going on? He was just so exhausted. We had to basically dial it back. So the next week, when he wasn't doing the extra shooting, the extra weightlifting on top of what our team was doing, we dialed it back, and he goes for 30 in Bremerhaven. Like it was like he tried so hard, he almost overworked himself to that point. But towards the end of the season, my end in Ulm, and I like to think about the 8 years, not the end. But there was some situations that arose. My contract was not renewed, and that kind of opened up the door for me to, okay, where do I go? One of the things I think that they were not happy about the last 2 years there, I was kind of working as an assistant with the Czech Republic national team, kind of growing and developing my experience. And so I was with Czech for 4 years, 2 of them while I was at the end of Ulm. Then Nick Nurse hired me to come to the G League. And obviously that was a great next experience for me. I was with Nick for 1 year in RGV. He showed me a lot about the league. We talked a lot. And that was a really good experience. It helped prepare me for the next year. When the Celtics hired me, they became, the direct control of the main Red Claws G League team. And, from that standpoint, I was the first hire from the Celtics when they, took over the Red Claws. And I absolutely loved that whole experience right there. The chance to be around Doc Rivers his last year, his coaching staff in, Boston, and then the first year for Brad Stevens. So, the chance to be around Nick in RGV for a year, then the chance to be, around Doc running his system. And then when Brad came in, the chance to, be around Brad and his staff for a year. Those were 3 great years to develop and grow. And again, we led the Red Claws to the playoffs, first playoff appearance in team history. Coached in the All-Star game, and basically helped several players, get NBA call-ups. Coached a lot of guys on assignment from the Celtics. So, that experience in itself was, really great for development. After my second year there, Brad and Danny, 2 guys who supported me a lot, they basically were like, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. We appreciate everything you've done. I had the Poland job lined up. And Poland came about, in 2013. I was an assistant for my friend Pavel Badinsky in the Czech Republic, who I got to be really close with my first year in Europe in Chemnitz. I would go visit him, watch his team. We had training camp in Komotov, which was about 40 minutes across the border in Czech Republic. So when Pavel in 2009 became the head coach of the Czech national team, he's like, Mike, would you like to be my assistant? I had just gotten to really understand national team basketball a few years earlier. We had Per, Robin, Konrad Wysocki. We were trying to develop some German national team players. So I was like, this is really interesting. Looking at it from a career standpoint, I thought to myself, some of the countries in Europe, Spain or France, or some of these other places are not very open to foreign coaches. Germany is very open to coaches from everywhere. So I thought to myself, well, if I become a national team head coach, then that will open up all these doors to all these different countries. So this was kind of the motivation to get involved. I really had a great 4 years with the Czech team. It culminated in Eurobasket 2013 in Celje. We had a couple big wins. We won a couple games, which were the first wins for Czech Republic in 17 years at Eurobasket. And one of them was a last-second buzzer beater against Poland. Poland, had Coach Bowerman, great coach from Germany. They had Gortat, Lampe. They had a really loaded team, so their expectations were really high. And we came in, and Lubos Barton hit a corner three with a couple seconds left, and we won the game. So when they did not renew Dirk Bowerman, they were kind of looking for coaches, and my name got brought. Obviously, people helped me with support, and okay, they hire me. And I think at first the people in Poland were like, who's this guy? But if you know the history of Poland basketball, the history of coaching, and the way teams are run in Poland, my positive coaching style, the player first and enthusiasm and positive energy was really different for them and what they had in the past. And I think the players loved it. They bought in right away. We didn't necessarily have all the big name players right away. I think they were kind of test and see, wait and see. But, it was a star mentality team before. It was like everything had to be about Gortat. Everything had to be about Lampe before. And when we came in, we kind of put in a system, which was an NBA style. It was also, so the players were interested to learn it. They had fun learning it and executing it. But they also felt that everyone could be a threat. Everyone could be, potentially dangerous in it. Everyone had opportunity. And I think these were a couple of the key things that the players just bought into it right away. I also think that the fact that we had a lot of fun with what we were doing was a big deal for those guys, because it was something that really was very different from their past. So, the first 3 summers in Poland were the old school, where you would have your training camp and you would have maybe 3 weeks of preparation games, and then you would have your event, whether it's, your qualification games or your Eurobasket or whatever. So we had 3 summers to really build our core, build the structure, and bring everyone together. In those 3 summers, we were really successful. Like we won our qualification group for Eurobasket 2015. In 2015 in France, we beat, a couple teams, we got out of our group, couple big wins. And then we lost to Spain. That was in Lille. The next summer, we qualified again, won our qualification group. But then the first hard time for me in Poland became Eurobasket 2017 in Finland, where, I felt like had a really good team. We were battle tested. We're really successful those first 3 summers. But we won 1 game. We beat Iceland. We had a couple really tough games. We were up 9 with 30 seconds to go. Actually, I'm up 9 with 1:30 to go against Finland. And of course, we had some mistakes. It was not the way you want to finish a game. But, we turned the ball over on a sideline inbound pass. Lauri Markkanen stole it, dribbled down and dunked it, tied the game. We eventually went to double overtime and lost that game. But we also lost A.J. Slaughter. We turned around and we played France really close without A.J. We lost. And then we just couldn't compete with Greece, and they beat us. So we left there winning 1 game. And like anything, in a national team job, there comes some pressure, there comes some expectations and some, difficult times. There was lots of, my seat was really hot at that point. But we kind of revamped what we were all about with our national team then. We kind of went for the guys, instead of trying to bring as much talent as we could, it was more for the guys who were going to put their heart into it. And we kind of focused on a certain core of players. And, obviously we went on a great run.
2019 was special, wasn't it?
We were 3 and 4 in qualifications. We got it right. The team connected, and we won 5 straight games. We ended up 8 and 4. We qualified for the World Cup, but we didn't just qualify for the World Cup. We had great preparation. And obviously the run in Beijing was something special. To me, I felt like that was just one of those once in a lifetime moments. We beat Venezuela, a really underrated, tough team, and then we came back and had the big win against China. China was doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, right? They were scouting us. They had video cameras on us. They were really getting a lot of information. So they really knew a lot about us when we went in there. And then for us to find a way to win that game was, to me, one of the best wins that I've ever had. But people don't talk about, we beat Ivory Coast to finish 3-0, and then it set up the big game. The next one was against Russia, beating Russia. Russia played big and physical, and that first half, they bullied us. That was such a physical and mental challenge for our guys. And the way we, withstood it, responded in the second half, and came through at the end, it just showed the heart of that team and the character of that team and those players. So that's a special win as well. And I felt like I've said to a couple of really good friends, when you get to that highest level, you find what your maximum is. And I felt like when we beat Russia, we really had overachieved and done fantastic work for ourselves. We kind of ran into a buzzsaw with Argentina. They really took it to us. And then for the, top 8 game, the quarterfinal game, we really have played Spain well several times. We would beat them in 2020, right before COVID started. That was the first time in 48 years Poland had beaten Spain. We beat them in Zaragoza. AJ Slaughter had a great game. But in that quarterfinal game, Ricky Rubio and the veteran guys, Marc Gasol, they were just too much. I think we ended up, it was a competitive game, maybe 12, but they controlled it. And it was like, okay, we're maximizing ourselves. We're doing everything we can. We just came up short. Then the game we played Czech Republic for, the placement game, and we felt like we had a great chance to win that one. But they had beaten us a couple times that summer with Thomas Satoransky and Jan Vesely. So tip your cap to them. And again, that's a special team to me too, because I was a part of those guys. I was involved with that team. So they did a great job. And then our last game against Team USA in Beijing, obviously that's a dream come true for every coach or every American coach. But for our guys, we played everyone in the first half because it was like, all right, we've had a great run. We want to make this a life experience. We played everyone. Certain players looked like, hey, they're ready to take it to them. And certain guys were kind of like, ooh, I'm in awe, deer in headlights. But after halftime, I think the guys responded and were like, hey, let's go. We can beat these guys. Let's go. And our guys really competed and played well in the second half. It was a really great way to finish the tournament. So that run was something special, with Poland. And then, during that time, I picked up the Hamburg Towers job as well. This was also a, great experience.
You've done something great there because obviously you took Ulm from Pro A into the Bundesliga. And then you're going to do it again with Hamburg. I mean, that's quite a rare treatment because Pro A, if you want to Spain, Pro A is a very difficult league to get out of, isn't it?
100%. So the hard thing about Pro A is, and again, this was for me, the adjustment of dealing with national team level players who, when you give them a system and give them structure, just turn them loose and let them work within the structure. They're so intelligent. They're so experienced. There's many times that I would put a play in and watch these players execute it, Polish guys, and they would come up with a great counter. A team would defend it in a certain way, and these guys are so smart. They know what they're trying to accomplish, and you just let them work. So then you talk about a Bundesliga player who is also experienced and talented on a certain level, but they're going to run a system to a certain point. But when you get to Pro A, it's a lot of younger players. So you have to kind of streamline it and bring it down to their level, and you can't expect them to just know right off the bat, like, okay, I'm going to react this way. If, you've got to kind of coach them through situations. So you can kind of present some ideas to them, but you also have to present them options and try to help them learn how to respond correctly. The polished national team player reads the game in such a way, boom, immediately they're going to something, So this was, I think, the big challenge. Now, specifically with Hamburg at the time was one of these big cities, Cologne and Hamburg in Germany, that everybody said, man, it would be great if Hamburg, such a wonderful city, had a Bundesliga team. They've got the great soccer teams. This can be a great basketball city. So there were big expectations. When I went to Hamburg, I was still coaching the Polish national team. And the point was that they had finished 13th the year before. Hamburg Towers finished 13th in the Pro A. I went there thinking, here is a great organization with so much potential and the drive and determination, the goals to get to that next level. When I went in there, we put together a really good team. We had everything we needed to do on that level to win. I really loved that Towers team. Now, Chemnitz was actually the more consistent team and better team all year. We had some injuries throughout the season. We signed a guy, Scooty Guyton, who was a great guard, but he had an ankle injury. We had a couple guys with nagging injuries here and there. We ended up actually finishing in 4th place. So you can imagine the expectations and pressure during that playoff time. Here's a team that is built to move up, and we're playing for 4th place. But we kind of rallied the troop. We had some great leadership within that team. Bo Beach, Drew Barham, import players. We had Chacha Zazai, who has led several organizations we called him Captain Aufstieg. We had some veteran players on that team. So we all knew what it was about. It didn't matter what our record was. It didn't matter where we were playing from. We had home court advantage in the first round. And unfortunately, because we finished 4th and Chemnitz finished first, in that second round, we would end up playing Chemnitz. Now, the problem with that, the Pro A to Aufstieg, move up, promotion, the 2 teams that make the finals have the possibility to be promoted. But we would be meeting in the semifinals. So only one of us could get there. Now, Chemnitz had beaten us twice during the regular season. So again, for us, we've got to beat Rostock, who at the time, now they're a Bundesliga team, but they were also a really good Pro A team at the time. We beat them 3-1 in the first round. And then it sets up that matchup with Chemnitz. The first game we go to Chemnitz and lose. We come home and find a way to win. Game 3 in Chemnitz, we lose by 20. So the next game we come home and Bo Beach hits a shot at the buzzer. We win. And it sets up a decisive game 5. And the thing about this matchup was Rodrigo Pastore, the coach at Chemnitz, who's done a great job with their team now, he was doing a great job scouting us. So, you go into a game, you say they've beaten us several times in one way. They've taken us out of our system. When our big men would catch the ball on the perimeter, they would pressure us and deny and take us out of our plays. So what could we do different? What we did, instead of running our basic sets and system, we went to a matchup game. So NBA style, we would set small screens, guard-to-guard screens, draw switches from them, and attack certain defenders. So they were basically defending a different team in that game 5. Scooty Guyton went for 30, and we won the game. So it was a fantastic moment for Hamburg. It was just a testament to our team. What does a championship season look like? It looks different. It doesn't have to be you dominate wire to wire all season, right? I think every championship team has to go through some adversity. And the reason you're able to achieve at the end is you go through that adversity together. Well, we had that adversity throughout the season with our injuries and different situations. We made some good adjustments at the right time. We had the right individuals to get the job done. And that was a wonderful moment. So, obviously you talk about Chemnitz, Aufstieg, my first year overseas, Ulm, moving Ulm up into the Bundesliga, and now Hamburg moving up into the Bundesliga. Unfortunately, when we moved up into the Bundesliga, there were certain things that happened around the team. The team was not ready to compete on the Bundesliga level at that time. We had some issues with athletic trainer. We had some issues with housing. We had a lot of things going on behind the scenes that needed to upgrade. And I'm sure since that time they have. You're talking about a Euro Cup team right now. But we played through most of that first year. COVID struck, and they kind of came to me like, hey, we want you full-time for Hamburg. And I'm like, well, I'm obviously coaching Poland. If we're going to talk about leaving Poland, we're going to talk about, you got to match their contract. Like, it's a guaranteed contract. I'm not walking away from that. So this was kind of the decisive point where they decided to go in a different direction. I returned with Poland and coached the next 2 years and really finished that strong. Obviously, like I said, we had a good run with the qualifications. We qualified for another Eurobasket. So I led Poland to 3 Eurobaskets. We beat Spain in that qualification for the first time in 48 years. And then obviously the next dream goal was to get to the Olympics, but we fell short in the Olympic qualifying tournament in Kaunas. Luka Doncic, we didn't have an answer. And the guys really competed against Lithuania. It was a great game into the halftime. And the Lithuania team stepped up in the second half. That would be my last game with Poland. So after that, it was kind of like, okay, what's going to happen next? When I was coaching at IUP, I came up to Canada to do a clinic for Mark Walton and at Cathedral High School in Hamilton. And it's amazing, years later, 30 years later, how these connections happen. One of the players on his team was Kyle Julius, and Kyle was the head coach and general manager of the Vancouver Bandits. And Kyle was like, hey, Mike, COVID has me over here with my team in Taiwan. I won't be able to coach the team. Would you be able to do it? And I started to look into the CEBL, the Canadian Elite Basketball League. And I thought back to all the fun I used to have in the USBL, the United States Basketball League, which is old school minor league. Before the summer league started in Vegas, where did players go play? They played in the USBL. And basically I was in Dodge City with the legend under Cliff Levingston for 1 year. And then I was in Kansas with the Kansas Cagers under Francis Flax for 2 years as assistant coach. And I had so much fun during those times. I used it to recruit players for Ulm. This was a way to get players and just a way to be around the game and get more experience. So I started to see the CEBL and absolutely loved it. Went to Vancouver and we had a great year. Won the most games the team has ever won up until this year. They had a great year this year, made the championship. But really loved the experience. Vancouver and British Columbia is a great place, good people, and it led me to Winnipeg. So after that first year in Vancouver, Kyle was like, hey, I'm going to come back, and you're welcome to stay as an assistant. And I'm like, well, thank you, I appreciate it, but I'm like to see what could happen as a head coach. And so some people connected me with the people in Winnipeg. And, one of the things that I love about the opportunity is when you look around at basketball and structure, I had the chance to be the head coach and general manager and build it up kind of in my vision, not only from an X's and O's and system standpoint, coaching wise, but, the old school minor league in the USA, what the trick was being good at basketball X's and O's and being good at player personnel. So your roster always had talent. And, I think there's a lot of that in the CEBL right now. The G League, for example, the NBA teams control the rosters and players with player personnel. They control the systems and X's and O's with, a lot of times what you're running. And that's not a bad thing. I think it helps you grow. It helps you develop. It helps you broaden yourself as a coach. I've had the experience to run Doc Rivers' system with, in my Celtics time with the Red Claws, and then Brad Stevens' stuff. So you get a chance to run other people's stuff and you learn and grow. But I think there's something great about having the ability and the opportunity to, build things up your way, the way you want them, and be able to make adjustments and improve. And I think it's really great for growth and creativity. So this is one of the things I really value about the CEBL. Now, Winnipeg is a special market. We really didn't know what to expect the first year, but it's a big league city. You've got the Winnipeg Jets there, NHL team. You've got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a great traditional CFL football team. There is a big interest in basketball in the city, and we did not realize how big. I can tell you this past year, we've broken all kinds of attendance records. We've had 8,000 fans per game average. So you start talking about other teams in our league are averaging around 2. Teams overseas are probably, 2 to 5 in that area. The G League averaged 1,164 fans per game, or 1,641. I have to double check those numbers. So, but when you look at the contrast of what's happening in Winnipeg with the Sea Bears and basketball, people absolutely love it. Now, part of it's the team. Part of it is people want to go see basketball. They want to see a pro team. But the way this organization has made the fan experience, we're playing in the Canada Life Center, which is the NHL arena for the Jets. The things that we're able to do for the fan experience, and that our organization, the president, and everyone involved, what they've been able to do have been fantastic. So there is such a healthy basketball culture in Winnipeg. And it's spurred growth in terms of more kids and more people of all ages, boys, girls, playing basketball in the province of Manitoba. I think there was a 23% growth in the game of basketball for the year of 2023. So for me, there's something special happening there. The first year we set records in terms of expansion record, and obviously MVP Teddy Allen, sixth man of the year was British guard Jelani Watson-Gale. We had all kinds. The U Sport Player of the Year was Simon Hildebrand, our college player, Manitoba, who's now transferred to High Point. Obviously I was Coach of the Year. So there was so many accolades and great things that happened from that first season. But the really great thing is just how the game had grown and how the team had established itself right away. So winning 12 games that first year and just making the playoffs was unbelievable for an expansion team. This past year, we improved the talent on the roster. It was, two former NBA players. You talk about improving the Canadian guys that you have on the team. Some great imports. But we had some inner turmoil. We released our MVP, Teddy Allen. We changed the dynamics within the season, the roles and everything shifted. We still made the playoffs, but it was, the goals for our team are higher. So now we've got a big opportunity ahead of us this year. We're hosting championship weekend in late August. So it's right now reflecting on what we've done last year, what we can learn from and improve, and trying to put together a great roster that loves to play together, that really likes each other, and that's going to play great Winnipeg Sea Bears team basketball, chasing that championship here the next summer.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about the CEBL, obviously, you play a different system when it comes to winning the games, don't you? We'd call it the ELAM ending, but you've got another name for it.
Well, ours is the target score time. It's definitely Elam ending is the same thing. It's named after Nick Elam, who created the unique ending to the game at the 4-minute mark for our league in the fourth quarter. The next dead ball, the clock stops. Once that clock is stopped, you look at the scoreboard, and whatever the scoreboard is, if it's 80 to 78, then you add 9 to the highest number. So then the target score would then be 89. So the clock is then turned off. It's only shot clock. And basically it's the first team to 89. So what it does, it eliminates garbage time. It eliminates a lot of timeouts. Privately, I really love the fact a coach can call a timeout, advance the ball, draw up a play, and really impact the game in that way, let's say in NBA style. But, this is different. You've got to prepare your team in practice. You've got to help them understand it's a player's game. And I think the mental part of it is really a challenge for players because, you play a certain way and put yourself in position to win because you've been playing a certain mentality, team basketball, moving the ball, attacking together. And then you get into Elam ending, and a lot of times guys will try to take that hero shot. And I think you have to have a certain amount of experience and maturity to know there's that temptation to just jack up a three. But, the players who have played in the league and have the experience playing, you've got to continue to do the same things you've been doing. Play the same way. Don't change your shot selection. Don't change your, what you're doing. There are times and places and opportunities where you need to take the three, or you need to make that, take advantage of that opportunity. But, the teams that come down and just try to play hit or miss and just jack up a three, a lot of times you're triggering run out fast break opportunities for your opponent. And especially in Elam ending time, that's critical. So, we had some amazing comebacks in Elam Ending in target score time this past summer. We were down double digits several times. We were down 20 plus points at different times in games. And our team just had a knack to come back. Now, we had really a talented group. We were really talented. But our mentality during these target score times is basically keep it simple. Give the guys a base defensive coverage. Everybody knows what they're in. Give the guys three. We try to limit it to 3 set plays the point guard can call. Obviously you got a timeout. You're coming out of a timeout, so you can draw something up there for a sideline, end line, whatever, the next possession. But you just try to get the guys to focus in on playing together and really executing. So basically keep it simple, give them a couple calls. They know what's coming. And then let them just go out there and play aggressive together. So it's really a player's game at that point. And a lot of times you have some amazing finishes.
Mike, it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you. I just sat back and let you go for your career because I was enjoying it so much. I didn't want to really try to interrupt you. But if we can finish just with a few questions, if I just go back. Sure. When you were at Poland, I've got to talk about Jeremy Sohan. He made his debut, did he not, while you were still coach of Poland? I think it's Romania.
Yeah.
Right?
So Jeremy, I have a very close friend, Poppy. So he's involved with, some basketball people there. And for me, he's family friends with Jeremy and his mom. So Jeremy was always on the radar. And, when I was in 2017, we brought Oleg Baltsarovsky as a young player just to be around the national team guys, because we knew this guy's going to, he obviously won the Euro League last year with Panathinaikos and he's gone to Summer League with the Celtics. He's a high level player. We knew this is a player for the future. So we wanted him to be around our culture, see our guys, get comfortable with it. So when he would have his opportunity to play, it would be normal. Same thing with Jeremy. So we had Jeremy in 2021, and he was there for qualifications. The first game we played Spain, and it was a great game. Well, super high level game, fantastic back and forth. We hit a corner 3 to tie it at 88, and they had maybe 12 seconds. And basically there was a shot went up with like 3 seconds and a phantom foul, loose ball foul on us, going for the rebound. Basically they're helping Spain. Gave one of their big men 2 free throws with like 1 second left. So he made the first and he missed the second on purpose. We lost 89-88. But this was Jeremy's first game. He did not play. He watched from the sideline. Now, Jeremy was really well liked by our veteran players. He fit in well with the vets. The guys liked him. He showed some flashes of, what, he could do. But, I think there's no one with our team, I don't think, would say like, oh man, we knew he was going to go out there and kill it like he did. So we put Jeremy out on the court against Romania, which we felt was really great opportunity for him to debut against. I don't want to disrespect Romania. We respect Romania. We respect all countries and opponents, but there's a difference between Spain and Romania, right? So we had him watch Spain and then come play against Romania. And, there's times in a game where a player just has to play. So you execute a set play, you don't get anything from your play, and players have to create together. The ball would find Jeremy and he would go get a bucket. And you're looking at this kid and you're saying, this guy is 17 years old. What are we doing out here? So he had a couple dunks. He had a couple tough pull-up shots. And you could see he was just in the game. It was natural. It came natural and easy for him. And then it came down to like in the last minutes of the game, one of their players drove down the middle and he just blocked a shot at the rim. And you're just like, this guy's doing everything out here. So from that point forward, I think everybody recognized like, man, Jeremy has really potential. Obviously, we love to follow him and his career with the Spurs. But he was really something special. He's a great young man. Really was a great team guy, super coachable. And like I said, I'm really proud of the fact that he debuted for Poland during our time.
I want to go back also to your time in the G League. I've always wondered, what's it like as a G League head coach? Because obviously you're working for the Celtics, but you're also coaching a team. Where's your priorities? Is it developing players for Celtics? Have you got to win the G League? It must be is it a mix of roles?
Oh, it is, and it's changing all the time. One of the best things about the G League is the challenge of coaching a different team almost every game. There's all kinds of player movement. Players are called up, players are assigned, players are released, players are signed. So you have a new team for every game. And how do you keep them within structure? How do you keep them within a system? I think that's the challenge. The other thing is, like we said, you're most of the time running someone else's system and structure, right? So all of these things help you grow and develop as a coach. You obviously want to win as much as you possibly can. But there's also the fact that when players get assigned from the Celtics, they're giving you, they're saying, hey, this guy has to play 30 minutes. He needs to get 15 shots. They're giving you certain targets to hit. One of the best stories for me was we had my second year in Maine. We had a couple days to prepare for a game against Delaware at home, and we built up the team. We finished with a pregame shoot around, and I'm kind of in the coach's office getting ready to go home for a little bit. And I get a call from Danny Ainge, and Danny's like, hey, we're going to assign you Vander Blue. So Vander Blue was a good guard. He was kind of in between point guard, shooting guard, but he had a 10-day call up with the Celtics, and they did not get him any opportunities to play. Sometimes that happens. So they're like, we want to watch him play, so we're going to send him down to you, give me all these targets to hit for him. He has to play point, has to do this. But Niall, the funny thing was, he was called up from Delaware. He was assigned to our team with no practice. He knew none of our terminology. He knew none of our plays. He knew nothing from our system. He knew their offense, their defense, their terminology. He knew their teammates better than us, but he was playing for us, right? Mm-hmm. So these are the unique situations that come up in the G League when players are getting assigned and you have so much change. And then at the end of the day, you just do the very best you can with it. You try to stay positive with it, and you try to make the most of it. And at the end of the day, you remember you're trying to put these players in positions to show what they can do so that they can improve their career.
Did you have a situation where you've literally almost submitted your team sheet and then they said, oh, we need this player?
That was the closest we came right there, right? Most of the time, all of this stuff happens ahead. But there's, when you talk about Europe, where there's very little, relatively little player movement on a team and on a roster, you might add one or two guys, but not like every single week. Even in the CEBL, we had more player movement than we would like this past year. But, these are the challenges of, keeping that structure and that system and keeping that team together and sharp. And those are the things that, are challenges for coaches. But at the end of the day, the type of, you want to try to plan out your moves as best you can, right? And I think that if you keep it organized and plan it out, then you have a better chance to execute it. So that's just the tough thing about the G League is a lot of times, they are surprise moves or moves that, like, okay, we have to emergency fill in this area, right? You don't really have the control to plan it out, think it through, and do it on the terms that you would ordinarily like.
And then just one final question then on the G League. So you obviously had to play systems obviously Doc had and Brad had. So did you spend time with them, maybe pre-season, learn the systems, or is it a case of like, this is what we run, do it?
Well, at the end of the day, I was around the Celtics a lot. Practices, games. I traveled with them in preseason and with Doc and the Celtics. I went on the Euro trip with them. And then, I spent a lot of time picking the coaches' brains, Jay Larinaga, Mike Longobardi, a lot of the coaching staff. They were really good to me. And this was, to me, really one of the most important times for me to grow and develop as a coach in terms of adding defensive detail and, things along these lines. But, I would stand by the sideline of training camp, and I would stand by practices with a notebook, and I would take all my notes and write these notes down and really try to, think things through. And okay, this is what I believe. This is my philosophy. Here's how I would like things to go, and add a lot of these details. So I took it upon myself to try to learn the systems and the details of each coach, and then try to translate those to something that worked in Maine. What you want for the players that get assigned from, let's say, the Celtics in this case, you want them to not have to think about, new set plays or new systems. You want them to just plug into the game and play. So this, to me, was the most important thing of having a base of offense and defense that there was so much comfort for them that they could just plug in. But I took it upon myself to try to learn all those things and apply them. And again, I think that's just the responsibility of that job.
Right, and before we bring it to close, I just want to take you back to Orm. One of my favourite players for Orm over the years was a guy you coached, you've mentioned already, Per Gunter. Played 14 seasons with the club. What was he like as a player and a person for you?
Well, I had Per when he was really young. And Per was a player with a lot of heart, a lot of grit. Early on in his career, he was so lightning quick, you couldn't keep him out of the paint. And he had great athleticism and body control, so he could really finish at the rim. He was a tough kid. Even though he was small, he could really use his speed to pressure and disrupt defensively. But I told you, the time we realized that Per could really be something special was Drew Joyce got hurt in our final preparation games at tournament in Ostend, Belgium in 2008. Drew was a great point guard and our leader. So we knew we would open the season in Bamberg. Bamberg was the returning defending champs, playing in their arena, 6,000 strong, opening game. And Per might have scored 6 points, but as a 20-year-old to control the tempo and organize the offense and get the ball where he needed to go and lead us to a win, that was something special. But as his career developed, he really improved his shooting. He became a fan favorite because he's a really likable person. He's a guy that, was great in the media and in the city, and people could relate to him. They liked him, So, what he did with his career in Ulm was something special. And it's a credit to him, his personality, his character, his work, and everything that he was able to do. So, again, I think that Per would even probably tell you, during our time, he was very young. And then as he kind of grew and developed his game and game maturity, his role changed within, Ulm, and he adapted to it well. But he was through the development and the rise of Ratio Farm Ulm step by step the whole way. So, fantastic career. And, I got a lot of good memories of seeing him, just lightning quick, bursting up the court in Sports Centrum Coburg, making a play. So a lot of good memories there.
The only sad thing when it comes to Per's career is all those years spent at Ulm, and he retired the year before they finally won the Bundesliga. But
you can't control those type of things. He had some, obviously he was on Torsten's great team, right? That was fantastic. Again, for Ulm, let's be realistic. Ulm is at a competitive advantage to some places, but disadvantage to others. I mean, you're talking about a EuroLeague team with Bayern Munich. You're talking about a EuroLeague team with Alba Berlin. You're talking about some high level organizations in the Bundesliga. And those teams are trying to win every single year too. So what Ulm has done to step by step grow and develop from my time in the second Bundesliga to a Bundesliga team that's just trying to stay in the league, to a playoff team, to a perennial playoff team, and now to a team that is trying to win the championship. And, I think the growth and development has been something special. It's been impressive. And I think Per has been a big part of that. The fact that they win the championship the next year, no one can control that. You can't guarantee when you're going to have an Aufstieg. You can't guarantee when you're going to have a championship. A lot of things have to come together. But I think that Per as a player, he evolved his role. He helped the team, and he'll go down as a legendary guy for that organization for sure.
And then one final random question about Ulm. Did you ever get a chance to climb the Minster?
All the time. Yeah. Many times I was up there. Every time my family or friends would come visit, that was a thing you've got to do. Take pictures up there. there's a lot of great things to do in Ulm. Like I love the city. I have friends for life from the city. A lot of good memories. You know, um, yeah, Ulm is a great place, and it's like I said, a lot of good memories from there. But the Munster is something definitely. The Christmas markets in the wintertime, something special. Um, yeah, just a nice season in my life. Those 8 years coaching in Ulm.
Mike, I couldn't finish talking about Germany by mentioning Vince McCauley, who was a guest on the first episode. Of course, Vince is coaching with the Artland Dragons in Pro A. And as we discussed in the podcast, you've had great experience of getting Hamburg and Ulm out of Pro A into the Bundesliga. If you could offer any tips to Vince, what would you say?
No, Vince is great. I remember him as being involved with the management from the Milton Keynes Lions from all the way back in the day, and then obviously he brought the team down to London and built the team up with the London Lions. I'm still in touch with Vince, and basically, we'll ask his opinion on players and things like this. So he's helped me from time to time, and I'm really happy to see him get an opportunity in Artland. Now, I will say, Quackenbrook is quite different than London. Quackenbrook is a really small town, and obviously, after living in a big city, London, that's a little bit of an adjustment. But the tradition of the Dragons is first class. They've got a great tradition there. They got great facilities, and I think it's a great place just to focus on basketball. Like we talk about the time in Hamburg and the difference of really high level players and Pro A players. You're dealing with a lot of young guys. You're dealing with a lot of players who are gaining experience. So the big thing for me is to focus on just the development. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be times where the team looks great, a player looks great. But one of the hardest things for young players and young teams is consistency. So especially on the road, I think it's a big challenge for a lot of the Pro A teams to find that consistency. To me, it's just about building the team up throughout the year, keeping that team connected, and then really focusing on the development. I think Vince has enough experience from all his stops. He's going to do those things. And like I said in Hamburg, you can never guarantee an Aufstieg. You can't guarantee it. You don't know when it's going to happen, but you just got to do your very best every single year, and hopefully that focus on development will really go a long way for Vince and his Dragons.
And then we'll finish by talking about coaching. You've also done some commentary in recent years, Mike. How have you found that experience?
Oh, I loved it. I'm fortunate because Jeff Taylor, who I think is outstanding, the FIBA broadcaster, he's something special. He's a very good friend. I really love to spend time with him and talk sports. And, so when we're together, it's not like work. It's basically two friends that are talking sports all the time. And he's helped me so much, he's put me in a position where I was able to express viewpoints on the game like a coach and basically play to my strengths. I've had the opportunity to prepare for a lot of those national teams, so it's relatively easy to talk about players or talk about styles of play. But Jeff has made it so much fun. So I love the commentary. It's another way to be around the game and be a part of it. But obviously, I appreciate the fact that Jeff has helped me so much here as a young commentator. Fran Fraschilla, I also need to mention. He's a guy who I've asked questions and he's given me great feedback. And I think if I'm able to say, hey, why have I picked this up so quickly and been pretty good? I think Jeff and Fran have been two great guys who have helped me so much. And then, don't try to do too much. Just try to stick to what I know, the X's and O's and the basketball, and just be yourself. So I've really enjoyed it. The studio stuff from when I was younger back in Sky was great, but the commentary of the games is a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed those, let's say, Eurobasket and the World Cup the last 2 years.
Mike, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Niall, and say hello to all friends in England.
And finally, if you're enjoying what we do, please make sure to like, subscribe, or even share the pod on your social media. Every little bit of support helps. Until next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Euro Step Brit podcast, a hoops and hockey production.